What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuide.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, we're talking about Brats. I didn't know what this was either. To be honest, if you think I'm about to start talking about the dolls, you win. You know, the inability that I have to be able to see, like, the little graphic image before a movie, I did not know what this is when I clicked on it. And so I totally, honestly believe with all the nostalgia we got going on, my first thought was it was a documentary about the Brat dolls. It's not. It's a documentary about the Brat Pack, directed by Andrew McCarthy, a well-known member of the Brat Pack. I've actually done this review before, and I'm doing it again. I don't usually. I usually have a couple reviews stacked, to be honest, and I don't usually come back around to a film, but I saw some other people talking about Brats, and there were some things that I just wanted to talk about and include. There were things that weren't really talked about in the audio description, but there are things that I kind of had a feeling about in terms of my thoughts about the movie in general that just sort of reinforced. It's funny, as a blind film critic, you don't get everything. And there were some things that I initially just thought, and we'll explore that. But this is a documentary where Andrew McCarthy just kind of wakes up one morning and decides, I'm going to make a documentary. And I hated being in the Brat Pack. Let's see how many other people in the Brat Pack feel the same way, too. And he goes about it by just sort of calling, all of these people that he knew from back in the day, but hasn't spoken to in 30 years. Because the truth of the matter is that the statement Brat Pack was given to this group of rising stars who came up at the same time and who were making films that were attracting young audiences, and they were called Brat Pack. And it made a sort of certain impact on their careers, for better or for worse, one way or the other, depending on who you ask. Because some of them really took their work seriously, and they were in it for the craft. And that's kind of what Andrew explores. And obviously Andrew McCarthy, in terms of members of the Brat Pack, kind of was on the lower end of success stories. When you have some other people who went on to do big things, he eventually interviews Demi Moore and Rob Lowe, two people whose careers and success stories have gone on to where they're still very prominent in the community today. Actually, so much so that I felt like when Rob Lowe was speaking, he was speaking very much in measured responses, because he's also very much, he doesn't necessarily want to bite the hand that feeds him. So because his career currently is very different than Andrew McCarthy's career, he's less likely to be like, hey, the backpack, those times were just the worst of my life. And so he's a little bit more diplomatic in his approach to talking about the Brat Pack. Even Demi Moore is sort of more like, I think it was what we let it be, but how it defined us. She's very sort of like ethereal in the way that she talks about the Brat Pack. Andrew also talks to non-Brat Pack people, just, I don't know, culture type people, just all over the place, just like all over the map, just random people about their thoughts, but all like people who are recognized some form as like journalists or critics or something, like entertainment journalists, something like that, and asks these people for their opinions on, what was the Brat Pack to you? What is me? What was this? Why did it happen? What is this? Is it trying to get down to like the whole thing here? And it's shot in this very sort of like, I don't want to say Gonzo style, because it's not really Gonzo, but it feels very like unenthusiastic, almost like he had no budget, but he had a friend with like a camera, and he went out and was like, let's see how many other friends I know that I can get on camera, and then maybe we'll call this a movie. And that's kind of what it felt like to me. And after hearing some cited critics talk about the film, and how Andrew has shots where you can see clearly, like, well, he's using like multiple cameras for shots so that he can have different edits, and his cuts look really rough. They've referred to that you know, you can see a lot of the sprockets and stuff like that, and it's a very odd sort of editing directorial choice, but you can also see other cameras. A lot of his framing is weird. It's just very sort of like very laissez-faire. I know that he's trying to go for this, like, yeah, we're just friends hanging and talking out, but every time he talks to somebody, he always brings up the fact that they haven't seen each other in 30 years. So they're having these really like awkward conversations, like in Emilio Estevez's kitchen with like this, you know, kitchen island between them. And it's like, why are we here? Like, why is this the location? I just feel like there are better documentaries set up. I just was always annoyed by, it felt like he was just driving around a lot and getting a phone call, and then he'd just like drive up to somebody's place and would be like, it would be here, and I'm like, oh, who's this? I feel, you know, I mean, half the film is the suspense built around, will he get to talk to Judd? You know, of all the people, Judd is the hard one to track down, which I find to be incredibly hilarious. That it's Judd of all people. Like, he can find Demi Moore like no problem, but he can't get Judd Nelson down until like the end of the film, when he finally gets a call, and then it like teases like, Judd, and then it ends, and you're like, what the fuck, man. Anyway, I wasn't that pleased with this. Yeah, I'm not in, you know, obviously you can look at my generation and you can look at the kind of films that I review when I really get sort of like nostalgic about things, and they're obviously like 90s movies. So yeah, 90s movies were sort of my sweet spot. Doesn't mean I didn't watch 80s movies. It doesn't mean I haven't seen Breakfast Club. It doesn't mean I haven't, you know, seen some of these films. I want to say St. Elmo's Fire, but I realized I actually haven't seen St. Elmo's Fire. For years, I thought it was a movie. I thought it was a medical drama. I really did. I thought it was like a hospital show, like Saint Elsewhere. You put Saint in front of anything, and I'm just like, oh, so it's a medical show. Like, I don't know. And then later on, it was like, no, it's a Brat Pack thing. I was like, oh, why is it called that? Like, I still need to see it. I'm very deficient in St. Elmo's Fire. I'm sorry, but I've seen a bunch of the other films that they've done as a Brat Pack, and one of the things that stood out to me was Anthony Michael Hall wasn't interviewed, and he isn't mentioned either. And every other time I've ever heard somebody talk about the Brat Pack, Anthony Michael Hall is always there. He's always mentioned as a Brat Packer. To me, he was the first person, and as soon as they got through the list, I was like, where's Anthony Michael Hall? And they point out, sided critics pointed out that they use him like in photos. You can see him; he's clearly there, but like they dare not utter his name, and I wonder why that is. Did Anthony choose to not have his name said? It's very odd that you would not speak his name. It makes me wonder what Andrew McCarthy and Anthony Michael Hall have going on between them that would have him included in photographs, like in shots of things, and in you know, clips from films and stuff like that, but not in the movie. Like, you wouldn't even mention him as being like adjacent, because he's got some people who are like adjacent to Brat Pack, but we're not technically part of this original article. Started by this whole thing in interviewing Emilio Estevez, and they another thing Andrew McCarthy does is he actually interviews the guy who coined the phrase the Brat Pack, on like how he feels about that. And I mean, there's parts of this that are interesting. If 80s films, and if these films were your films, this might be incredibly interesting to you. I just think, I don't know that Andrew McCarthy was the best director for it. I don't know that he really shows off his director skills here. I think he was just the guy with a phone who was able to make some contacts. Because, like, if I wanted to make a Brat Pack documentary, it'd be really hard for me to call up Rob Lowe and be like, hey man, I'm making a Brat Pack documentary. How do you feel? I would never get to Rob Lowe. But Andrew McCarthy can pick up the phone, and he knows who to call to get Rob's phone number, you know. He has those connections. So he's basically a phone. I don't know about his filmmaking abilities here. As a documentarian, I just don't feel like there's strength in his work. Audio description here is Roy Samuelson, and the company, I want to say 3Player Point 60. It's one of those. It's okay because it's a documentary, but then again, what I'll say, and I love Roy, and he's just reading a script, and his voice is fine here, but I am re-reviewing this, and I almost like never do this. I almost never come back to a film a couple days after I've watched it, because I feel like, having gotten so much context from other people about the film, that I felt like I missed too much, and it needs to reshape my vision, like the way that I was like, oh, I mean, these are things that technically I didn't, but they were things that I thought were there, that I suspected were there. So things that I suspected were happening, but I didn't have any like visual verification of it. It's tough with documentaries because they're so dialogue heavy. It would be like trying to add audio description to my review. Like, how would you do that? It would be really hard to do that. So I often give documentaries a pretty big pass, but at the same time, there was a lot that was missing here in terms of really being able to talk about this film from a directorial achievement standpoint. Previously, I didn't like Andrew McCarthy's directorial. I had a feeling, I was like, why are we at a drive-through? Why are you explaining this to the lady at the drive-through? I just didn't get it. There were things here that I didn't get. There were people that were missing. I was like, why are they missing? It just kind of felt like a weird thing that he made, and it's on Hulu. And I didn't think anybody else would review it. I really didn't. I was like, because I have a ton of content on my channel here. Lots of films that no one is reviewing. Because the majority of the critics won't touch films like this because it won't give them views. So nobody ever talks about the films, and they never get reviewed, and nobody ever we never have conversations about films like this. And a lot of independent films relegated to streaming, if it's not like awards season, like Sing Sing is going to get 1,000 reviews because it's charting to a Best Picture nomination. But there are a lot of films that are released theatrically that are independent films that these major film critics are not going to talk about because they won't get the views. So I thought for sure I wouldn't see any other reviews for this, and then I did see a couple, and it really helped shape my original thoughts. And I hope this review is a little bit more concise and gives you a little bit more of an opinion than what I would have released. But anyway, the grade is the same. Actually, I didn't change the grade. I just felt like I had more context, and I just was able to give better thoughts. So hopefully this review feels more well thought out to you. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm gonna give Brats a B-. I'm not that big of a fan, and I definitely would not pat Andrew McCarthy, but I think there's something interesting here. Just like I think inherently most documentaries about film grab me on any level. When you start bringing in it's about film, I'm like, well, okay, if you have to twist my arm, So, yes, I was interested, but I think somebody else should have directed it, and it would have been better. It's possible that this could have been a really great documentary that really sort of explored the use of words and how, when you think you've come up with something cute, what that really means, maybe one day we'll do like a documentary on the effect of Benifer, and what that did to the relationship of Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. The consistent use of Benifer, of compiling those names together. What does that do? Things like that could be really interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.